Hello, everybody. How you doing, Bettina?
Hi, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm doing okay today. I got a bit of a migraine. I got a really bad migraine this morning, which is unusual, and so I'm just kind of trying to ignore the remnants. So I'm
Yeah,
pretending that everything's fine and it's not there.
that's,
So
well,
otherwise, I'm good.
hmm. Well, sorry for your discomfort for sure. I know headaches are not fun. I'm lucky enough. I don't get them too often, but boy, they can be
Yeah,
really debilitating when you get them. So
yeah. Well, I haven't been getting them very often, and I'm sure it's I upped my detox thing, so I'm sure it's a little bit of backlash from that. So
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
good thing in the end.
I always feel so much empathy because I know that when I feel sick or I'm in pain, and if I have an injury, which I've had on a handful of occasions from playing sports, and you know, it's just for people who are chronically in pain or chronically sick. um, I just feel so much empathy because it really puts a fog on life, and it can be really difficult to operate from that space. And I know that myself, even contrasting where I've been in times of being sick or hurt, and times of good health. There isn't enough cliches to say, if you have good health, then there's not a whole lot to worry about. You're still in the game.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah. And
be
I mean,
grateful.
I'm lucky enough to be any problems, physical problems I'd have were minor ones and I can, keep going. But having been involved in this protocol that I'm doing, the number of people that are really, really suffering with physically debilitating illnesses that stop them from being able to go to work and all that kind of thing is, yeah, you really got to feel for them. And so having this headache, it's like, yeah, I wanted to just crawl into bed, and then I was like, no, I'll just sit here with it, and um, it'll be fine.
Hmm. Yeah.
I try not to let it stop me. In other words, it could be too easy to. But again, mine are not as bad as other people's who really don't have much choice. So I feel for them too. It's not fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to be grateful when we feel well, to keep reminded of how lucky and how much potential is in this moment when you're well.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
um, well, with coming off the back of that, maybe we got a little bit riled up just before the show started taping, talking about topics today, and this one's kind of an easy one, kind of fell right into our lap, and so I guess I'll take it in that direction now. So I've been dabbling on YouTube with a few things, and I have a couple different channels, and perhaps even a couple different personas, as is becoming evident. And so everybody who watches this show knows that I'm love competition and love sports and so on, and there's a baseball video game that comes out every year this time of year, and it's one of the things I look forward to each calendar year, and I put a good amount of effort into playing competitively online for about a month, and it's usually corresponds well with my summer business on outside. And this year is even better because it's been cold. It's been downright cold. We're supposed to get freezing rain still, and it's like almost middle of April, and so I've had time to play, and it kind of transitions me into my outside work schedule. And so I've been putting together these videos, these compilation videos, highlighting this task that I'm trying to accomplish in this game. And I never was really much one to consume a whole lot of stuff out there. I mean, I do like to watch YouTube, but it's generally in the space of this show. It's usually in the space of self mastery or self awareness, or improving yourself, opening up to new ideas, and to really understanding how I can best live a life that feels good to me. But moving, kind of having this branch of something that I'm doing online with competitive gaming, and posting videos and growing a YouTube channel. It's funny, it's had some good success and it's gained some traction. And it's spawned a couple of forums because I kind of take it's, I said to Bettina off air, it's kind of like wrestling, where I take on a persona of being a small guy versus the cheaters, or against the people who try to exploit games and so on. And I try to fight the good fight for the person who just wants to play the game and play competitively, without dropping all sorts of money on boosts in the game. And so there's been this thread that's really kind of taken over the game's dedicated website on his forum, and it's really introduced me to or reintroduced me to forum hate and comment arguing and these things. And usually kind of where I tread on the internet, there's not a whole lot of it unless I get into like down a hole and start reading stuff on Trump or something, and then you just see the comments, and I find it fascinating, the vitriol and the arguing that goes on, and the legitimate hurt, and being a part of that, and also being the target of that over the past little bit. It's been really kind of eye-opening, and really made me think a lot about why it is that we do this, and not having it be necessarily a big part of my world until this past month. It's kind of something that I've just been unaware of. I always kind of knew it was out there. I see the fights on, you'll watch like a CBC News or NBC News clip, and on the comments, they'll just be fighting between Republicans and Democrats, or left-leaning, right-leaning, whatever, Rob Ford or, Donald Trump. And, I just think that's part of the political sphere, but it actually quite spills over into a lot of other things, and things you wouldn't think that would be connected. But, I know that, Bettina, you were writing for a website, for a website,
Mhm.
the Good Man Project, and you endured some of this too, when you would write something that would, I don't even know if it was necessarily all that out there, but it was just an angle you were taking on a story. And of course, you can't be comprehensive. I do 1 minute highlight videos. There's no way that I can give a fair and biased approach, or even if I were to respond to things in the comments. I mean, it's like, you can write a wall of text, but still only 4 paragraphs. You can't encompass a whole story or a whole thought or a completely comprehensive argument. And the amount of like one line or just name calling that goes on. And I really kind of wanted to open that up, and to dive into that and open that up on this show. And also maybe put a thing out there to ask ourselves if we're participating in this kind of destructive conversation, where you're only looking to score a point in an argument, and not necessarily trying to either relate to the content in a productive way, or even show your best self, which is something, I think, a challenge that we should always keep in mind when we have the opportunity to articulate ourselves, to not take the easy way out. And I know internet trolling is the easiest and lowest form of it, but it also translates into our real life too, and where we talk behind people's backs and really just kind of be really critical about one aspect at one angle, and think ourselves pious and righteous, because we're able to dissect somebody in one way.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's very ego driven, of course, and I found the experience very interesting. Um,
So you would write an article basically talking about, men, maybe discovering parts of, life or themselves, or you'd be giving permission or asking them to think about. And you would get, I know that when you were doing this, I remember you bringing it up, it was a couple of years ago in
mhm.
particular, and then you would get hate in the comment section.
Yes, people would post comments about what I'd written and everything that I had written, and most of the time, everything I write about and everything I write about whatever topic and everything I talk about here on the show, I I strive to do it from a place of love, from a place of, helping people to recognize who they are truly, and to bypass that ego part of themselves that can drag them right into that place of pain and suffering and cat fighting and whatever else it is. And I was posting these blogs, and there, I'd get these messages saying there were comments, and I'd go in and I would just sit there and think, oh my gosh, I don't understand I did not understand where people were coming from. And, you know, on a website called the Good Men Project, and me writing from the perspective of my own men's program, which was the Wise Man's Way, I just thought, you know what? I don't think they're attracting the kind of people that are interested in hearing what I have to say. And funny enough, at the time, I really didn't take it personally. And I think for me, that was a good thing, because I think it could have taken me down a really dark path. But I find, you know, and this isn't the first time this has been talked about, probably even by us, but the internet is a place of anonymity, so to speak. And people, when they don't have to look you in the eye, I mean, there's people out there who can look you in the eye and be mean to you, but when you don't have to look someone in the eye and you don't know them personally, it seems to be very easy to get mean and nasty and critical and judgmental. And I don't really understand what it is about our psyche that pushes us in that direction of, you know, they can't be right because they don't believe the same thing I do. I guess that's what it is. I don't know. It's like, you have to believe what I do or you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you in the worst possible way. And that's, I don't know. It's just that you're trying to build a loving environment. At least that's, you know, from my perspective, I'm trying to build a loving environment to share these ideas and maybe some of the wisdom that I've picked up on the way. And it's falling. I feel like it's falling on very critical ears. I wouldn't say deaf ears. I would say critical ears, because of the comments that came back. And to be honest, I just would answer them. I would just, before I would answer them, I would go into that loving place in me and answer from that place, as in, you know, well, this is wrong, and blah, 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 and you don't know what you're talking about, and da 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 da. And I would come back and say, you know, we all have different ideas about how things are, and that's what makes humans interesting. And I appreciate you sharing your different perspective with me. You know, things like that. That was allowing them to be whoever they needed to be in that moment. And I think that becomes part of good relationships. But it was fairly tame. You know, when I hear and see some of the stuff that goes on Facebook and other social media places, I feel like it was quite tame. What you would do in cases of cyberbullying and the way people attack everything you say and do because you have a different belief system or opinion, I just don't know. I don't know how kids do it nowadays. I really don't. I mean, I was bullied as a kid, and it was bad enough being bullied in the schoolyard and in the classroom, but to be bullied online by such a wide spectrum of people, because it does make your world bigger and smaller all at the same time. I just don't know how people do it. I don't really hang out on Facebook a lot, except for the two groups I belong to, and I pretty much stay to those groups, and they're very loving and supportive groups. So really don't get that kind of people. I mean, one is a Course in Miracles group, and that's, you know, the most loving environment I've ever seen on social media. And the other one is my this food protocol that I'm on, this support group for that. So, but I know it's happening, and I've heard about it happening, and I just don't know what the answer is, but it's scary. It's really scary that it's so easily attainable to bully and to be mean and to criticize and judge. And People say, oh, the world is becoming more aware and more conscious. And I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure
Mhm.
that's the case. I think the world is becoming more openly unloving in some ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just confusing and frustrating.
I think on that point in particular, I think it's something that's going to be really neat to note. Like the internet is just absolutely this absolutely incredible tool, and of course, it's still in its infancy. We always think that we're so advanced, but the internet's only like 20 years old, and really for access and speed, and to use it in a way that's, of course, it's not fully functioning. We don't know what it's going to look like in 15 years, but in a way where it's really accessible and really at our fingertips, and really where there's really no delay between impulse and being able to do something on the internet or consume something on the internet. Um, it's going to be a messy time because even with the Me Too movement or any movement, and we've been doing this show for 6 years, and there's always some movement going on, and really is the internet is helping to expose us, where we could hide behind, and we could hide our anger, we could hide our frustration and our lack of being validated, and our ego and wanting to promote our identity. The internet really exposes us. It doesn't, I don't know if it makes us worse. I definitely think that the anonymity can contribute to us behaving poorly, but but that's just human nature, whether it's anonymity on the internet or anonymity behind closed doors. Our worst can come out when we think that nobody's watching. It's the
Mhm.
reason almost why religion was instituted as a social means, or a societal means of control. That there's somebody always watching you. You tell your kids that really early if you grow up in the church or any religion, really. Your actions matter when nobody's watching, because he's always watching. We do behave better under those conditions. Whether or not that's fully fleshed out, whether or not that's healthy, is another argument for maybe a few more shows down the road. But so the internet's really just exposing us, and exposing what our instincts are. And that's where I think that it's important to have, where it could be concern, is that things are keep getting shrunk down more and more into sound bites, into incendiary remarks, because honestly, it's what gets the views. In me doing my videos that I was speaking to earlier, the more incendiary, the more I can be dickish in my commentary, the more attractive it becomes, and the more likes, and the more dislikes, and the more views it gets, which can be a peril, as we move down this internet evolution. But I do think it's so important, and why we do this show every week, and why it's long form, why it's 30 minutes, why there's no editing. It's just a conversation, hoping to expand, um, hoping that people will watch. And it's funny, my 1 minute sound clips, crazy things you can see on the internet get millions of views, and long form, thoughtful discussions. It takes a certain person, or it takes a certain interest, to sit down and watch the whole thing. And this is really where all the growth can happen. The rest of it is just this like pablum. It's just easily consumable. It's just click on it, and you get your fill quickly, and then you can move on, or you can move on to the next distraction, or the next. Then watching people, when I'm at the restaurant, people are on dates and they're just scrolling mindlessly, scrolling more, the next, the next, just consume it. I'm kind of making a long point, though, that this long form discussion on why we do it, and why we do this the way that we do it, and why we're almost stubborn in that way, is because this conversation can create a pondering in a viewer. And I know that this type of video, while less stimulating in some ways, was these videos done in this form were really beneficial to me when I was struggling, when I needed help. Reading a book that took 14 hours was the way to actually improve my life. Not a quote might hit you here and there, but most of the quotes that hit me were within the context of a book, not just out there, and they just hit me when it wasn't in the energy of consuming that kind of material. And I think in the way that the internet exposes us, and what's really important is that we give people an outlet, and we give people, like you said, the way that you would respond to those things was to almost validate them. And if you can validate them in some loving way, usually the vitriol will stop. Not only online, it's amazing that it works in chat forms, but it also works in real life. If somebody's upset and you can come at them and hold space, hold loving space for them, which is what your response was on the internet, and some things I've been interested and have tried in some of the comments that I've provoked. Um, it really kind of puts an end to it, and it really gets people kind of almost on your side, being, oh yeah, we don't need to be so upset. But I think that validation and also creating an outlet is really important in your life if you're upset or if you feel stress or anxiety. And I know everybody seems to already press for time between work and kids and relationships and responsibilities and so on. But whatever that outlet is for you, whether it's working out, whether it's getting a sweat on, whether it's competing, whether it's some usually some exertion of some sort, getting an outlet for these things in a healthy way. And it's why I think it has contributed greatly. I know I'm going on here, but why in some ways Western society, what's helped it flourish is the embracing of sports for men in particular. And you talk about the Good Man Project, and I just know how valuable it is for me to be constantly playing sports so that you guys can get out their asshole tendencies in a way that's constructive, in a way that there's no consequence, in a way that it's just an hour and a half, and then at the end of it you shake hands and you have a beer together, but you appreciate the aggressiveness with which you can come to that forum with, and you almost appreciate the aggressiveness in which that it was returned to you so that you could have a match of some sort. And then you can go home and be relaxed. And I know that's been so important in my life in dealing with my anger and my frustration and my aggressive tendencies, as would be natural. I'm a man. I'm supposed to be out there killing things to bring home food for the tribe, and it's just not part of my society. I don't think waking up to an alarm at 7:30, eating brand, all brand, and then going to work and sitting at a desk and doing accounting work for 8 hours is letting any of that out. And so that's become and then coming home and having to be, men have to be so much more part of the family and be good partners. There's just no spot to let it out in modern day society. And I think it's even trending the more so. And that's why I think it's really important to carve out that time. And I think those two things, validation and an outlet for aggressiveness, can be so useful, and we wouldn't necessarily have to expend it in a forum or in being a dick to somebody or in talking behind somebody's back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think, there's old needs and lifestyle that come really from, the origins of man, where, they were hunters, gatherers, and they really had to physically put themselves on the line all the time, and you had to be strong and you had to show your power because you had to be able to provide for your family, and you had to be able to take care of your tribe, and all these things that are so ingrained. Same for women and their role from those origins. They're so ingrained in us, and yet the paradigm has changed, and it's no longer a necessity, but there is still something inside that needs to have that physical release of all that testosterone, which has played such an important part in the past, but no longer is as necessary as it was back then. So yeah, I totally agree with you about that. And I think it makes for a better, more conscious living man. Being a heart-centered man doesn't necessarily mean that you don't go out and tackle somebody on the football field. It's about how you approach everything in your life. So yeah, I find that really interesting. And I think if that part of the need that men have is taken care of, you see, that's a physical thing. I don't think it has anything to do with the whole um, being critical and judgmental um, and attacking people verbally on the internet. It's a really important part of it, um, but women do it too.
Mm.
And sometimes I think women can be worse because they can be very, very vindictive and angry, and it's just it baffles me. It just baffles me. It's like, why do you have to be so mean to this person who's, you know, I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
I try to look at it from the perspective of someone who is bullying, someone who is mean, someone who is critical is really unable to see their own self-worth and self-confidence, and is erroneously looking for it by way of making other people look worse, thinking that that's going to make them feel better. And it never works, but the ego keeps telling us to try it over and over and over again. And we don't feel any better about it.
Yeah. It's almost
And
like
yet,
if we can, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
and yet, the whole idea of acts of kindness and the really good feeling it gives us seems to go by the wayside. Yes, yes, it's out there. I'm not saying it's not out there. I'm not saying that, there aren't people who are more conscious, and maybe that's why all this ugly stuff is more prevalent, because it's pushing up. The consciousness is growing, and it's pushing up all this negative stuff to be looked at, and to have to for people to do something about it. But it's much easier to listen to the ego and to put your worst foot forward instead of your best. And I think
Yeah.
that's a shame, because I think, you think of the teenage suicide, and
Yes.
how prevalent that is. And many, many times the cyberbullying is a real factor in that. So, yeah, it is a big
Yeah.
problem.
And we're talking about our experiences here as an adult on these forums where you're trying to do something nice or trying to post something that's entertaining or beautiful, and yeah, getting knocked down like that. And as an adult, it's like at least we've developed the inner strength, the self awareness, or knowing who we are enough that an internet comment, while we're like, that was mean. Why are you so upset at me? But to a 12-year-old who's posting a picture of her new boots she got for her birthday, and people are commenting on her Instagram saying those are the ugliest boots I've ever seen in my life. Only a troll would wear those, or only, somebody gross would wear those or something like that. I don't even know what the insults are, but something to that effect, that can be really damaging. And it can be, it's something that we need to take a look at. And I think it's hurting people hurt people, to your point. And I just love that expression, hurting people hurt people. And it's where you come to a fork before, where while yes, that physical exertion for men and having that outlet where it serves as fuel to be mean and aggressive, we can take care of that in healthy ways. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is still the ego, and it really is a search for validation. Because when you say that, when you're mean to somebody, you say something mean behind somebody's back, it's like, it's funny. It's a two-part process. The first part, you're right, doesn't feel good. You're not being a good person. You're not being nice. But what you're doing is doing a real cheap tactic for validation, because you can say, oh, that person looks so ugly, or that person's so stupid, or that person, whatever, their partner's ugly or whatever. And then that doesn't feel good. It. But if somebody agrees with you, if you can get one person to agree with you, that's where the payoff is. And of course, the cheap, toxic payoff. But
Mhm.
that's what people are so desperate for. They do it for a search of validation. Because if somebody can agree with them, then they can be like, yeah, yeah, that's right. Um, and that's why, if we can preemptively give people validation, and why, if in our own lives with the people who matter, because you just affect the 7 people who are really close to you, your friends, a couple friends, family, parents, kids. And if you can validate them, if you can take that extra conscious moment to validate them, you know and if you feel, and if somebody does that for you, you know that when you feel validated, you have no need. to be mean to people. Listening to Gary Vee a lot lately, and he talks about how he thinks it's the opposite. He's saying true talent isn't true talent breeds humility. When he talks about people that he's signing or people in the business world, he says, because when you know that you're good, when you know that you're good at something, and that doesn't mean that you can shoot 10 out of 10 3-pointers. It just means that somebody came up to you today and validated you. You know that you're good. You don't have to go and spread anger. You don't have to go and be mean to somebody, in that cheap attempt to get that toxic validation from somebody else who will agree with you. You know, I think it's a real call to validate others, validate ourselves within our relationship with ourselves, and create an energy where that is put out and reciprocated.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that the times when I've been mean to people or said nasty things, it's because I was hurting. It was because I was feeling afraid, or I was not feeling safe in the environment, or I was feeling inadequate or not good enough, or whatever it is. There is some lack in me that I am not recognizing at the time, and my outward expression of it is jealousy or nastiness or criticism or judgment or whatever it is. It is a part of the human condition, yes, but as conscious living people, this is part of what we are looking at, is recognizing when that's happening and really doing our best to make a shift in how we deal with it, and then how we approach that situation. If it happens again in the future, we can do it from that place of recognition and of self-validation, even
Mm,
if we have to, so that we do not pass on our pain to somebody else. um, I think that's a really important
yeah,
point.
we don't pass on our pain to other people. That was really well said.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone over time today.
Uh-oh.
It's been kind of a passionate topic. Now, how do you feel
Yes.
about finishing us off with a meditation, Bettina, sending us off into our day with 3 minutes of self-love?
Absolutely, because we could all use a little self-love for sure.
That's right. That's right.
All right, let's close our eyes and take a deep breath. And breathing deeply and fully into our body, feeling our feet planted on the ground and roots going deep into the earth as we connect ourselves as human beings to the earth. And breathing in the divine energy that connects us to our true selves. And as we do this, we can go to that place within us where we are safe and protected, comfortable, loved, and at peace. And in this space, we see the truth of who we are. We see that there is only abundance, there is no lack, that we are everything all at the same time, that we are one with the universe and with those around us, that our pain is no different from anyone else's, and that our love is no different either. And in this space, we see that there is no need to take someone else down in order to feel better about ourselves. What we really need in those moments is to come to this place within ourselves and know the love and beauty, the wisdom, the kindness and compassion that are our birthright. And from this place, we can extend and express into the world that self-love and help the world to heal, to grow, and to become more conscious and more truly good. Breathe into it And then when you're ready, wiggle your fingers and your toes and bring yourself back to the world.
Thank you, Bettina.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for your viewership today, and appreciate. We'll be back again next week.
Have a great week, everyone.